Apparently there are some housekeeping details. So we have no planned fire alarms. So should the fire alarm sound, we need to evacuate the building and follow staff to assembly point in car park 23. I think we have fire exits there and there. I've always wanted to do that. And yeah, so if we do hear a fire alarm, please make your way calmly to the fire exits. Don't follow me running out the door. So the theme for today, as selected in fact by previous attendees to our events, is placements and internships, a cycle of opportunity. And I think we've got some key discussion areas, including the benefits of doing a placement, top tips on attracting students, placement and internship challenges, and sharing best practice and nurturing talent. The format, as you can see, is a panel discussion, Q&A panel discussion. So we really do encourage your participation throughout the morning, particularly as I'd rather not be the only person asking questions. We've got some questions in advance, but there will be ample opportunity to answer any questions you may have. We have roving microphones from our ladies here and here. And if you could just state your name and the company that you work for before asking a question, that'd be great. And we also have a live Twitter feed using, and slightly amusing if you read it, Twitter handle, which is UENF 2015 or UWEN 2015, should you prefer to tweet. And the other thing is we are being live streamed, so hi mum, hi dad. So just to start off then, I'm going to introduce the panel. So if you guys could wave as I introduce you, that'd be great. So we've got Colette Percival, who is the Employer Engagement Manager here at UWE. She currently manages the Employer Liaison team and is coordinating Graduate Talent West, which I'm sure she'll be able to tell you about. We've got Tom Ponting, who's a permanent director, and Louise Foster, of Learning and Development from Opus Recruitment Solutions. Yeah. They've been involved with UWE in 2013 after attending our Meet the Employers Fair. For 2015-16, they've taken on 3 placement students. Thanks very much. Great. We've also got Melissa Hardwell, who's Head of Financial Services at Avon on Somerset Constabulary. And I understand you've taken on a number of placement and internship students over a number of years.
And I've got 2 summer placements with me now as well.
Oh, brilliant. Great to know, thank you. We've also got Marisa Colburn, who is an HR consultant from Consult Believe. That's a locally based SME who had a number of internship students. Now, just to note, Marisa's been suffering from vertigo, and so she may just disappear off if she's sort of finding it difficult. So she did ask me to mention that because she has been feeling slightly unwell. But thanks so much for coming today, it's great. We've also got Chanel Dublin, who is was a business studies placement student in 2013 to 14, and she just completed her placement with Intel and has recently graduated with a first. Well done, Chanel. We've got Victoria Davis joining us on the end, who is just completing her placement, our business and management placement student. She's with Mighty at the moment, but she's also completed 2 undergraduate internships in her first and second years. So that's great. Thanks all. So I've got an easy question to start with, just to sort of walk things up. So this is for our employers on the panel. What were the benefits to your organisation? So what are the benefits of engaging with internships and placements to your organisation? Who wants to start that one?
I'll start this one.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So it's quite simply black and white for us. In recruitment, it's obviously about making money and billing and such. So the 2 people that came on board with us, the benefits were that they made us money. So amongst other things, they brought in £175,000 within the time they're here. They started off as resources, so the resourcing, helping out other consultants for the first 3 months or so. I think they actually resourced and found around about 10 people, 4 other consultants, and they've gone to the stage when they made the step up to becoming a consultant or a trainee consultant. And again, they didn't look back. I mean, that outperformed a number of our other people within the business, I'd say, to the point of over average. and finished the year between the two of them on, let's say 175. But also, they developed a completely new patch for us as well. So we had focused typically on the southwest M4 corridor, and we do a lot of London, and we hadn't tapped into the Manchester and North patch so much before. So we gave them that market, and they also developed that market for us as well. So it's actually now, since they've left, it's a market that's it's hot and warm, and someone's come onto that market and has done very well, incredibly well in a short period of time, on the back of them also leaving. Yeah, because it's already been developed by them. So that was that's the big thing for me and what I've done for us so far.
I don't know whether anyone else has got anything to add. Thanks.
So I've had the benefit, can everyone hear me? Yeah. Oh, good. I've had the benefit of a number of students. So previously, when I was head of financial services at Avon Sunset Police, I've had a couple of placement students for the whole year. I'm currently head of strategic service improvement, and I've got the benefit of quite a big team. So I've got about 120 people in my team, and that allows me to bring in a number of students, whether that's on full placement years or whether that's summer placement. And I've currently got 2 on summer placement they're on their 4th week in this week. Slightly different perspective from my commercial colleagues. We do a huge amount on change projects. So I've currently, I've got about £30 million worth of change projects. And what I've been able to do is bring the students into some of my projects and programmes of work. And they come in as project officers. And for me, I think they're very willing workers, and a good attitude gets you a long way in my workplace. They're very competent on IT. They're so much better when I ask the IT questions at interview. I don't even know what they're telling me, but it sounds really impressive. So they don't need a lot of sort of induction and training from the technology side. I pick people who tend to be really good communicators. I choose people that I like to talk to, who can talk well, hold a good conversation, show interest in people. And I've found that all the students that I've come across have demonstrated those skills and integrated into the workplace really well. I think they're generally good all-rounders. The latest batch that I've recruited come from the law course, but by virtue of some of the group work, the coursework that they're doing and the way that students learn, that lends itself quite a lot to the research work, the planning, working in teams, being a team player. So that's, they're really good all-rounders and good team players. And nice people to have in the workplace. I've also put, it's probably not politically correct, but fresh blood into the team, new ideas, so they're not entrenched in Avon and Somerset Police ways of thinking. So they bring some good ideas and very quickly feel that they can offer their experience or their ideas as part of a team. So I really enjoyed that. And for me as well, working in a budget constrained environment now, there is the benefit of having subsidies. So I can get project workers in, or I can get performance analysts in, and I can do that at subsidy. So they're all really positive attributes, and I'm very happy they bring a lot into the workplace. And I've personally found, and I don't know if other employers have, I feel quite proud at the end of their journey that I've helped them become more work ready. So I virtually always feel like a proud mum at the end as well. So that's really positive.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hi now, I'm from Consultly. We're a small but growing company, so we can bring a slightly different perspective. Our story is just quite amazing for us. We started off as 2 directors, effectively working from home, freelancing, building our business, and we got to a point where we had a little bit more work than we could manage on our own. We took on 2 interns about 3.5 years ago, who stayed with us. One of them's now one of our most senior members of staff. We've got a small team now. We've taken on about 7 interns in total over the last couple of years, And they've basically helped us grow from a business where we were effectively sole traders to a limited company where we've got an office in Berkeley Square. Every one of the interns that we've taken on has actually stayed on with us. So they've either come back and done their sandwich placement, they've done part-time hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours a week, and then have progressed to, we've got 2 full-time members of staff who are now mentoring other interns and are really, really specialised. So, and the first one that we had, one of our interns won a prize, and some of the team at UWE today, they remember me kind of arriving with my kind of eldest child, who's now going to schools, as you know, how things have progressed over the last few years. And they're actually still with us, leading on a number of projects now. So, you know, for us, we're so positive and proud. We simply wouldn't have been able to grow as a business without UWE. The team have always been extremely supportive. So if I've kind of struggled with kind of, you know, any of the mechanics of loading things up or any question, nothing is too difficult. You know, the amount of support we've got is fantastic. And it's allowed us to take on staff where we simply wouldn't have been able to afford to do it otherwise. So we tended to take on staff to do particular projects, internal projects. For us, one of the things, the lessons that we need to learn is that as a small business, everything we do for any business is a cost. We need to make sure that we use that. So what we've done at times is we've taken interns on to work on a particular project. They've kind of got, you know, drawn into the day-to-day client work. So as one tip I would say is that they've not necessarily worked on the projects that we've expected them to, which is fantastic, but it's allowed us to do things that take us to the next step, and then that's been able to mean that we can afford to take them on properly and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's been really positive for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sort of looking at you guys, you know, on the end there, we had a question from Brina Humphreys from Page Group, and she wanted to understand what motivated you to want to take up an internship or placement.
Yeah, I think as a business management student, one of my main motivations to take on a placement was just to sort of gain an insight into the world of work and develop those skills that graduate employers are looking for, those soft skills that you can't really develop at university, obviously to increase my employability. But one of the other main factors really, I think, was that opportunity of maybe returning to your internship organisation as a graduate, so you develop those contacts, you've experienced the work at the organisation you're at, and I think maybe even if the work isn't what you want to do in the future, I think you can still take so many positive things from it, and you can learn a lot from other more experienced hires at your organisation and perhaps come back in a different role. So yeah, I think the main thing was just to gain an insight into that world of work, the different roles that are out there, and the opportunity to come back to your placement organisation or any contacts you've developed whilst on placement for your future sort of graduate opportunities.
Thank you. Vicky, do you have anything to add there?
I've had like 2 different motivations in terms of internships. The motivation wasn't necessarily for the same reasons as my placement yet. The internship as such was still very new to university. I did my first one after the first year of study, and it was more the view that I need to get a good placement. I needed more experience than just a part-time job. So the internship really provided that for me. I worked for an events management company and was involved in the Bristol Green Fiesta, Bristol Harbour Festival, and all of the stuff that surrounds that really. So that was a really good way for me to get some really hands-on experience that ended up really, yeah, the motivation behind it was for a different reason. Whereas the placement, I found that was more for my longer term career development goals. The idea that Mighty recruits from within, that they have a scheme in place, that all of the sort of reputation that comes along with it. So the placement, which I'm really enjoying, I'm 10 months in at the moment, but the internships are definitely a big stepping stone for me in my career goals overall.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Colette, if I could just ask you, just to very quickly summarise the kind of benefits for UWE students of sort of doing a placement or an internship.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. So obviously, you know, our employers and students have talked a little bit about their own personal benefits, and I think from the university's perspective, helping local employers to access talent, which can be quite difficult, knowing how to advertise, where to advertise, is beneficial for us because it means that our students and graduates can fulfil their career aspirations in a more positive way and have more positive interactions with employers. And I think that anything that we can do to facilitate that is obviously in all of our best interests. There's the fact that it's a flexible resource, it increases graduate employability, adds new skills to the workforce as well. Some employers might take students who have, like say international students have knowledge of other markets, so it helps them expand. There's such a diverse range of skills that you can access other than just, the qualifications they'll get from their degree as well. I think raising the profile of organisations can be quite difficult. Brand awareness costs quite a lot of money, whereas if you're working with your local university, you're getting that on campus and taking students, and that's quite a big benefit to employers. And from the student side and graduate side, I've got some stats here which are quite impressive. I mean, the students that go on and take internships and placements, when they graduate, 87% of them will go into professional or managerial positions, compared to 71% if they don't. So actually, from their perspective, like these guys were saying, their motivations to increase their employability, get better opportunities, it's just the feedback there and the statistics are there to back that up. So our job is then to help facilitate that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience at all?
Yeah.
Just one at the back.
This is one that
Sorry, could you just state your name and where you come from?
my name is Genevieve. I'm the HR manager at Cineat, formerly Lafarge Passport at Cineat. I used to be heavily involved in placements in a previous company, and coming to Cineat, I can see they would benefit hugely from placements. But I've come up against something, because I've not been involved with it for some time. There's a new thing that's I found as a blocker, which is social media. The business are concerned about ratings of rate more placement and things, and can we give the best placement experience? And they're concerned if they're not if they're just doing photocopy, perhaps the first 2 months, and suddenly it will be all over Facebook. So this is not something I've come across before. And I wonder what the panel or anyone could suggest that it would help me put my business at rest or peace of mind.
Okay. I don't know whether anyone wants to. Great. Yeah, please. That'd be great. Thank you.
Are we on? My advice would be, why don't you get one of your, whoever it is that's from above who's got these concerns, speak to any one of us. That we were, our company, we did it for the very, very first time last year, very sceptical about doing it. Do we do it, not do it? And it worked. And I understand what you said about social media and stuff, but actually, if you've planned beforehand, because you said you've used students before, you've had a positive experience of it. There's that little resistance factor of like, it's a fear of the unknown. We've not done it, so let's not go near it. But actually, more than happy to come and talk freely about our experience, the highs, the lows, what we do again, what would we do differently. In terms of like social media, do you know, I don't think there's anything too much to worry about if you're providing a positive experience and a plan beforehand rather than rocking up on week 1, month 2, month 3, what we get these guys doing. Actually, my best advice would be to treat them very much like you would a permanent member of staff. So don't treat them like, do you know what, they're going to be here for a year. Do you know what, some of your permanent staff will be there less than that. So integrate them into the business like you would anybody else, provide them with the training, the experience, whatever it is you would do, so that you're not going to get that kind of like, oh, just send them off to do some photocopying, that'll do. Actually have a proper plan. Like I say, the social media side of things, I wouldn't worry too much about. They're more interested in actually getting on with the job rather than rating your company badly or the experience badly. It's kind of like how you manage the situation. And if you see it coming, manage it so it doesn't happen.
Thank you, Louise.
Just the other thing I would add to that, I have the same view. I'm not too concerned about what social media said, and I absolutely echo Louise's comments. You have to be offering them a proper work experience, but the reality is that when you join a workplace, we've all been there, we've all done it, and some of that is some of the more routine work. So and as long as that's taken in the whole, so So yes, there might be some elements of photocopying, there might be some elements of admin, but during that time, there will also be a lot of other sort of very significant, meaningful sort of work experience. I think you shouldn't be too concerned. If you, like you said, if you've got a structured or planned role and there's a meaningful role, if part of that is some admin support, that is real life, and I think it would reflect badly on the student placement, not on the employer, if they were to go onto social media and rate your particular company in a particular way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Echoing some of the points that have been made here as well, but what we find useful is very much from the start, from the interview process as well, setting expectations, so being realistic about what is the experience going to be like, what's the job going to entail, what are the highs, what are the lows, trying to kind of get a feel for whether or not they're comfortable with that. Agreeing objectives at the start, just like you would with any other employee, so almost like a kind of performance plan, you know, where do you think your strengths and weaknesses are, what do you expect from us, what can we do to help develop you, what do we in return we expect from you. But then communicating very much throughout, so that if they are getting a bit frustrated, they're not particularly happy, as you say, you're able to kind of get in there slightly earlier and try and rectify it if possible, or as you say, it might not be necessary. You know, if you've got a team around them, briefing your team before the intern comes on board, so they can start to pick up things, you know, that can help if they feel that somebody's not feeling great, or they can help support in another way, or potentially buddy or mentor. Just a slight aside, but on the same kind of topic, while it's in my head, one tip that we do have is we've got a kind of social media policy or plan with guidelines as to what kinds of things we would feel, you know, not just students, employees should and could say when they're on social media. So it's, you know, you can't stop them having their opinion, but it's useful making them aware that, you know, they need to make it clear if they're not representing your company, that they're not, you know, that they're respecting equality and diversity, that there's guidelines in place. So it's not completely red, but it's something that not everybody thinks of, because if they've not been in that world of work before and they've not been exposed to a social media policy, it might be just useful to say, look, this is the difference when you're on work, this is the difference when you're at home, if you're representing your company, when you're kind of going on your own personal, you know, make sure that you're asking that there's just basic guidelines that you can put in place.
Thanks, Lisa, that's great. Thank you. So I'm going to move things along now. I'm going to direct this to Chanel and Victoria. So Victoria, perhaps I could start with you, just to ask you very quickly about the internships. What attracted you specifically to the internships you applied for? Role, company, values?
Yeah, the first one I did was events management, and to be honest, the whole job specification, the application, all of it just looked really exciting. It was a almost fantasy job in terms of this, like, not all jobs are going to be like that. My parents kept telling me that, like, this isn't real. Like, you can't do events management and go around Bristol, and that's not real. But it really, the things behind it really motivated me.
Great.
So yeah, that's what motivated me to do that one. My second internship, to be honest, was more of a filler in terms of I knew I wasn't going to go away between starting my placement in September, so I needed more experience, and I wanted to sort of use my finance skills that I'd acquired over year 1 and 2. And I worked for a very small company. There was only 7 employees. It was a property maintenance company. Ended up doing their tax returns, the website, all of the small things. And I knew that I was going to Mighty, which was a really big company with 70,000+ employees. And I really wanted to get the idea that I could have some scope between small and big business. Because it's one thing saying that you're like working for a very big business, but to understand the core functions of a small business and what you've learned in principle at uni really was like what motivated me to take on that role rather than having a summer off.
Thank you. And Chanel, what attracted you to your placement?
I think at Intel, the job role specifically, I mean, it was in my field of interest. I was really interested about the role. It sounded great. But I mean, Intel, the name did really attract me at first, and their company values and the benefits and just the opportunity of working in a larger company like that. I think for placement students, the opportunity to move around the business would be quite beneficial for me. So I would sort of advise, I really did enjoy my role, but if you could offer some sort of job rotation, I think that would be really beneficial to students at the placement stage, because I think a lot of people really do know what they want to go into, but a lot wouldn't mind that sort of flexibility of being able to move around. So I think the job role is important, but I would say to be able to give that flexibility at the placement stage would be quite attractive to students as well.
And do you think, so if you have the reality of a small business, you'd have that, like you were saying, you'd have the exposure of a variety of different things without needing the rotation, so it can kind of work in both cases. Thank you, brilliant. And for my employers, top tips for attracting talent to your opportunities, because we've heard kind of what intrigues these guys, but do you have any kind of things like the advert perhaps, or anything that you might suggest?
My top tips would be actually to work with UWE, because you can go onto Career Hub, you can post your own adverts as an employer, and then the lovely Rachel over here said, please, can I just give you some tips on your adverts, please, because you might be putting a few students off. So things like, it's a thing that, you know, because we work in recruitment, we write adverts day in, day out for the jobs that we're hiring for. We think we know the great at writing adverts, but actually it's a different audience. So we have to write our adverts differently. And Rachel pointed something out to me that, you know, I put on there that there was no end date or something I hadn't put on it. Like, so students thought, actually, do you know what, there's no urgency, I don't have to apply for this now. Whereas if I put an actual date on there of saying, do you know what, we need applications by this date, then maybe, you know, stereotypically, you know, sometimes we think, you know, students need to kick up the backside to, you know, do this by this date and hand this in. So, because it was a sort of never-ending date, it's probably why I wasn't getting the response, because, you know what, there was no urgency there. So, absolutely, work with UWE, get some tips from, you know, write your advert, get them to look at it for you. And then other tips I would say as well is actually give your placement students a full interview as you would for a permanent member of staff. I made some notes last night by saying, you know, don't see it as just a bum on a seat for a year. It's not. You need to get something out of it, so do they. So they deserve their place. So make sure that they're interviewing whether you have competencies that you expect from your permanent staff. Look at those competencies against your placement student as well, and have they got the kind of same values, same perspective? Do they want to achieve the same things as you do? And I think if you tackle that from day one, you'll get a better placement student who will stick and stay. Thank you. I don't know whether anyone has anything to add.
I would echo all those comments. First and foremost, make sure that you've really got a proper, well-defined role or job that you can offer your placement students. Sell it in the job description, make it attractive and appealing, and you will get a higher number of returns. I have done exactly what my colleagues around this table suggest. I've been fortunate to be able to have lots of applications. I shortlist them according to the criteria I would normally expect within my team. So for project officers, I shortlist them against that criteria. And I interview them against that criteria. But what I would say is you have to be a bit more flexible. When I was entering the workplace, I had lots of experiences from a very young age, and they're not allowed to work in those type of environments at that age anymore. I wasn't quite sent down the mines, but I was. But what you've got to accept is that they'll bring different experiences. So you've got to be slightly more open-minded about the experience they've had. I've come across many chuggers. That seems to be a very popular pastime way of earning money for students, and not many of those seem to last very long in that role. But actually, that would have there's a lot of skills and tenacity and interpersonal skills that people need to do that role. So think about what experience they've had, but be quite sort of open-minded. The questions need to be fair at interview, and I have sort of I follow some standard questions, but try to have a more relaxed style so that they feel they can ask questions and they can loosen up and tell me about their experiences. And just a sort of final tip, talk about being clear about what the role entails, be very honest. A number of people that come to me, they want to be police officers, and I'm not running an audition process for police officers. So at that interview, if that's what they want, I politely re-signpost them to how they might access police officer roles, because actually I only want people who are interested in doing the job that I'm prepared to offer. And then throughout their placement, remain interested, flex a bit. So quite often I meet some great students, I go back to the workplace, they're not quite right for the role I had in mind, but I'll see if I can create or look at ways they can fit into the team to try and find a good match as well. So that's it for me.
Thank you, thank you. Just a couple of little tips for me, perhaps not necessarily applicable to everyone, but firstly, make sure that you get your admits out early. It's such a practical tip. We found that at times we kind of ummed as to whether or not we need to take on an intern at a particular time, then we've left it a bit too late, and then obviously we've not, we potentially lost some good students to some other companies. It's just a practical tip. For us, we're able to try and be a bit more flexible. So I would say try and strike a balance between being clear about what your desirable and essential criteria are for a role, but be realistic that obviously they may not have direct experience of particular things. You've done a couple of work experiences in a professional environment, that might not apply to everyone. So see whether or not you can incorporate questions relating to core values and attitudes. So for us, being able to have good attention to detail, someone that's going to be loyal, thinking about things like non-disclosure and confidentiality, and that kind of thing, can they work autonomously. We've also, at times, if we felt that there's not necessarily a complete fit, we've done kind of little tests where we've got people to go away, work on something that's very, very real, that we would expect them to do, and see whether or not they've been able to research things and come back. And that's worked really well as well. So don't be afraid to do whatever you feel you need to do to make sure that they've got the criteria that you need.
Thank you. Thank you. Have we got any questions from the audience at all? No? Cool. Okay. So we'll move on now to sort of barriers, because I know that is something I know people wanted to have a look at. So we'll start now with the employers on the panel. What are some of the challenges you've experienced in taking on placements and/or internships? And you can be honest.
Okay. Probably the biggest challenge that you'll come across is the change from students to almost adult, if you like. I know obviously they are adults, but that kind of engaged brain of actually, do you know what, I need to be somewhere on time and I need to dress appropriately for work now. So that kind of transition of going from jeans and t-shirts to actually, oh my God, I've got to wear a suit and have an ironed shirt and all that kind of thing. But that's probably the biggest problem to start with. Of do you know what, we actually start really early. Their contracts start at 8 o'clock, but most of the guys are at 7:30. For a student, that's flipping early. For most people, that's flipping early. Yeah. So that kind of bleary-eyed student wandering in at 7:30, quarter to 8 in the morning. It's been a shocker for a lot of them, but actually, it's the transition has been incredible with them. Of actually, once they get into the pace of it, they actually realise, this is normal, this is routine, and they've kind of grown up, and actually it's a bit like a newborn baby. Actually, they like routine, and once they know the routine, they know what's coming and when, and they've developed as individuals as well. Yeah.
To start off for me, with the tool we had last year was the attention span.